welcome back to Affirm a Day Workout with Helen Chen. So today we're doing Shape of Water. I know this seems like a really odd frame to choose. It doesn't really feature any of the protagonists. So sorry, I didn't pick a frame with the fish guy. But you know, I just was really drawn to this shot in particular for a couple of reasons. When I think of Shape of Water, I think of green. The movie is very overwhelmingly green. It's very intentional. It's to kind of, I feel like it's to kind of like relate to just the watery, murky like theme that's throughout the movie, especially relating to the creature and where his origins are from. And the reason I like this shot is because of that blast of red in the background. I had talked a little bit about color and, you know, like assigning colors in movies and what they could mean and things like that. And this is a great example of just a director making a decision based on his story and setting up the rules himself. This is not like, of course, you know, we do associate a lot of times in Western kind of media, we do associate red as kind of like, you know, a trouble color or whatever. But it's just, but here it's used effectively because the rest of the film is green, which is its direct complement. So that's kind of what I find interesting about this shot and the way that this color is used in the film. If you look through the entire film, the film is primarily made up of really kind of like variations of this blue-green kind of a color woven through all of the sets. There's actually a diner set that was really cool that I considered choosing instead of this shot that has kind of a more yellowy green kind of like stickers that are on the window. So with the light kind of showing behind it, it's even more saturated than you would expect. It's really cool. But ultimately, I decided to choose this one because I just like the very conscious use of red for this part of the movie. So this is towards the end, the climax. And up until then, we really haven't seen red in the whole movie. To offset the green, there are scenes that are a little bit orangey or has like an orange bounce light or something like that, but not pure, you know, red. And the first time we see red actually is in the main character. She in her attempt to save the fish guy, I don't know what else to call him. She puts on a red coat and it's a little bit maroon and desaturated, but it sits well with all the green color that is around them that they've kind of either achieved through, you know, a LUT or color timing or something like that. But then at the height of conflict, Guillermo del Toro ends up like introducing this vibrant red. It almost looks fake, you know. It almost looks kind of like it's not a natural red that they put in the scene. It's like enhanced somehow, and this is a perfect example of that. And the way you can kind of like the unsettling nature of it is kind of in the fact that, you know, you have this reflective surface of this car, but the red doesn't reflect. It's only reflecting the green, and so it's like, oh, it's like it's like they did it after the fact or something, you know, like something is not quite right here. It's only laced in the background. And then there are times when the red is kind of affecting characters. And then there's red from the blood from the gunshot because of, you know, the fish creature getting shot. And so it's just a very interesting way to introduce this complementary color into the whole movie. Like if you think about the whole movie as one painting instead of a series of shots and scenes, it's like that one focal point of like a green kind of like seascape, and then there's like a person in red, and so your eye goes straight there, and so all of a sudden your attention is grabbed and like drama is revealed and everything like that. So I really like the use of red here. I think it's interesting and a fun creative choice. And so I wanted to paint it. And plus it just, you know, there was just so much kind of contrast in the rest of the film with the specific set designs that I felt like it would take me too long. Like it would be like a 2-hour study instead of like, you know, a 30 to 50-minute study. And I thought that this could complete some of that in that time while I talk about the film a little bit. So another thing I really love about this movie is just the choice in set design. There's just some really cool stuff here that you can kind of pull inspiration from because they're very specific with the way they design the sets. One of the examples I can think of is the main character's apartment has this kind of half moon shape window, but it's kind of cut in half. And so it creates just a really interesting shape because it's very unexpected. But then you see her neighbor, and he has the same window except it's the continuation. And so it like creates this feeling of their kind of close relationship, that they're linked together, and then as she goes through the movie and finds something that is her kind of secret and is truly hers, it creates a little bit of conflict with the neighbor. It's not a huge storyline, but I just like that that approach to that set gave that feeling from the story from the get-go that these two were really close, and they kind of had each other as like confidants. Another great example of just very mindful set design that I love is anything to do with the fish god guy. He's kept in, of course, like these horrific kind of lab setting. It feels very experimental and just pretty awful. But there is one scene where he's like, there's like a tub and there's like these steps leading up to it, and then for some reason this round pipe design behind it, set immediately behind it. I remember going to a talk of Guillermo del Toro's, like for one of the screenings of the movie. He was there to talk about it a little bit after an audience screening, and he mentioned how that kind of set was like designed purposely to feel like almost like an Aztec temple. And it totally makes sense when you look at it, like the steps going up to the bathtub. I think it's also in the art of book too, this kind of this anecdote, but I'm not like totally sure. I don't own the book. I feel like I looked it up and I saw somebody mention it or something. But the bathtub itself, or that little pool, it has 3 steps leading up, all culminating into this round insignia behind with all these pipes splayed out from that circle. And so it looks like kind of like a temple with like a sun motif almost. And the reason for that is because we find out towards the end that, or it's speculated in the movie by characters in the movie, that this is a river god of some sort that they captured from the Amazon, that they were like experimenting on. And so I thought that was really neat. It's the set design that you know makes you think of something else than what it is. It's still part of the human set of the experimentation in the lab, and it uses items from there with the tubes and the tile and things like that. But what it does more is like psychologically clue you into the where the creature came from and some of its some of the connotations that it represents, which I thought was really, really neat. Challenge of this image for sure for me is dealing with the subtlety within all of the green. Because there is some of it there. There's some kind of yellowy green going into more of a blue green and then more of a cyan. And so to get that balance is going to be really tough. Another thing that I'm not exactly looking forward to, but I hope turns out okay at this point, is the car. I'm not, like I mentioned before, I don't like drawing mechanical cars. They're a little bit of a weak point for me. But this one is kind of easier because it's so dark, and instead we're able to kind of break it down simply into planes because it's also kind of an older, boxier car, so that helps as well. Besides the red and besides, the obvious light bulbs coming from their flashlights and the headlights, the second most eye-catching shapes or shape or shapes is the value of the color of the helmets. So I'm gonna try and get those in because they're gonna be kind of my goalposts for what is a correct value that feels like it sits within all of this darkness and relates a little bit to the top hood of the car as well. So now that I'm approaching the car itself, I'm kind of just treating it very much like shapes and planes, and I really like the transition in the top plane of this hood anyway from some of the different temperatures of greens I was talking about. So this wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It was actually kind of fun. And another thing that I was noticing as I was painting the front of this car really is kind of the artificial what the artificial lighting in this scene is doing to some of the lights. You can tell that the light bulb in the car itself for the headlights is inherently warmer, but because of all of the green and the blue around it, and maybe some of the color adjustments they did to the film after the fact, it really looks kind of like this weird color that kind of isn't that consistent between each of the headlights. So I'm just trying to catch that as well, just because I feel like any chance to put a little yellow in here, something that isn't strictly this blue and this red, is going to help it, or blue green, I should say, is going to help it feel a little bit less too monochromatic. Start adding some of these little light hits from that are like reflecting off of the headlights before I put in the light itself, just because I want to try and get that color there. And it's gonna look a little bit odd. It's kind of weird. It's like a desaturated color. It's not very bright, but I just want to put something in there that's a little bit mid-tone and not quite as bright, and maybe goes a little bit towards yellow and warmer, and hope that when I do paint in the kind of bright spots of the headlights, it will really feel like they kind of are like, interactive and connected. This movie is definitely another one of those movies where you definitely learn more about it and the creative choices Del Toro made, looking at the whole. So if I were you, I would maybe in addition to if you wanted to rewatch this movie, to pull up or look for like screen caps of the whole thing all together on a page to really see the color transitions. It starts kind of like a little bit paler of a green, and then as the film progresses, it gets more and more intense, and they introduce like secondary colors like that orange, and then finally this red towards the end. And it really works. There's a progression from the beginning to end that speak to some of the story moments that are happening throughout the film and what they mean. And so I'd definitely take a look at that and really sit there and kind of try and think about if it was a choice. And I always err on the side of like assuming it's a choice, even if it may not have been, just because I mean, it's not to be like try and feel smart or anything like that, but it's just so that I can further, like come up with ideas of why they did a thing, and also in my own work, think, oh, right, I have this option. If I want to really, if I've set up the beginning of the movie for my main character and it's like really peaceful, and then all of a sudden something tragic happens, introducing a color that the audience hasn't seen before throughout the whole film will be jarring. In addition to other things like different editing, cutting style, and things like that, just to give impact. But it's really helpful to know and to think about, and it's always better to drive your decision making with actual intent than to just think, oh, I mean, there's this forest scene, so I guess I'll do it in foresty colors. It's more like, well, it's a forest scene, but it's supposed to feel sad, so I'm gonna make it a forest scene at this time of day with this kind of thing, And it's just that kind of thinking that will definitely take your work, especially in the biz dev realm, to the next level. So now I'm finally going to tackle Octavia Butler's character here. I really find it interesting what the light is doing to her and the colors on her. She's also got a little bit of this yellow-green peeking through this darker blue-green trench coat, so I want to make sure I capture that, as well as represent the skin tone so it feels like light reacting to skin instead of like if she were to put like green paint on her face. this is arguably the hardest part of the whole painting is trying to get the color to read right and the shapes to read right on the face. I feel like I don't want to try and get too specific with the shapes because it is a very small area and it's hard to get it correct. So I'm just going to try and simplify it as much as I can and see if I can get away with, you know, a light side color and then a dark side color and that's it. Now that most of it is laid in, I'm gonna add in some of these smaller details like the umbrella handle thing. I don't know what it's called. But I really like it. I like that straight there. Kind of for some reason it just anchors the whole piece for me. Whether I don't know if they thought that that was the reason to put it in. It's raining, so obviously she has an umbrella. But I just really like it, and I think it adds to the piece and it balances things out. So putting it in there was really satisfying for me. A lot of those hits of light are coming through. I'm not even really sure what's happening over there. It's so blown out by light though. I'm just gonna hide it in the glow. So I'm gonna hit each of the glow with a really soft round to get the light to really feel like light. And as I'm looking at it, I do want to get those different subtle hue changes between the lights to read, like the two kind of lights that are held by these guys, the flashlights in the middle. They're a little bit more blue-green in hue, especially like the kind of light spilling from them. And then the light towards the bottom, especially near the headlights, is all affected by this much more yellow light. So I'm going to play around with the colors and the hues a little bit more to get it to read. Like it's pretty close. I don't know that it's the exact amount of like softness that I wanted from the headlights and the other flashlights, but I feel like this is a good compromise. So I also liked that there's this like light beam coming from there so subtly that's hitting the rain. So when I do the rain, I'm gonna make sure to have it be a little bit more obvious in that area where the light from the headlight is to kind of show you the directionality of the headlight lights. And now I'm going to tackle the rain as well. Rain is kind of like I have a brush that I use sometimes for rain, but sometimes, especially in something so loose like this, it almost might not work as well because it's too clean. So instead, I'm just going to use a Reiki type brush. You can do the same. I'm going to get the directionality of the rain into it, and then I'm going to carve out, or just very messily carve out, the shape of the raindrops from erasing into these strokes. And I'm only putting a little bit where I feel like the rain is actually affecting the color. So in the top left corner, you can feel the blue light affecting the rain and making it feel overall a little lighter. You can see more raindrops being lit by the headlights in that light stream. So I made sure to hit it there as well. And now I'm just like using a smaller brush to kind of paint in it to really break it up so you don't see just the rake brush. And then we'll put a directionality on it and blur it out a little bit so it feels like it's rain without disrupting too much of the image. The fear is that you put in the rain and it's too high contrast and then it messes with the values of your painting, and so this way I have a little bit more control, and it's more of just like a hint of it rather than every single raindrop getting put in there. Going through and hitting it with a bit of value adjustment here and there with a soft brush. I darkened the background that was sticking out to me at the very end. Pushed back and put some atmosphere on those guys on the left, and we're about finished. Thanks so much for hanging out today and doing this study with me. I'll see you tomorrow.